NFL free agency set to ignite in a little over 2 weeks, it's time to start surveying the market. And as things stand, it's clear the Eagles won't exactly be big spenders due to their salary cap problems. However, there's nothing wrong with some window shopping, especially when it comes to bargain bins. So in this series, we're going to take a look at every single position of need and identify 5 names who the Eagles could well be keying in on come the start of free agency. The Eagles have a dire need for cornerback help opposite Darius Slay. The former Lions Pro Bowler showed that it doesn't matter just how well you can blanket a team's #1 receiver if their #2 is literally running around in a field doing crosswords. With a plethora of nickel corners on the roster and a total lack of boundary help, it's time to see if the Eagles could maybe slap a band-aid on the position just before the start of a new era. Let's start off with the most obvious candidate in the room, Xavier Rhodes. Now, why is this a clear link to the Eagles? The former Pro Bowler actually played some of his best football in Minnesota under Jonathan Gannon. Now, who is Jonathan Gannon? He happens to be the Eagles' new defensive coordinator, who before taking the role worked as the DB's coach in Indianapolis. His placing there was actually a large reason why Xavier Rhodes decided to jump to the Colts last season, and he enjoyed a huge bounce back after a couple of years where his play seemed to drop off a cliff and many people were quick to write him off. He picked off 2 passes and allowed just a 51.9% completion percentage when targeted. Davia Rhodes would be a perfect player opposite Darius Slay and give the Eagles a strong veteran with a Pro Bowl ceiling under a defensive coordinator who has done nothing but get the best out of him. Now, his spike in production may well raise his price, but age would surely only bring it back down again. If Rhodes does want to thrive under Gannon once more, who's to say that he won't take a slight discount? Next up, we've got Brian Paul, and this is someone I really wanted the Eagles to sign last offseason and the offseason before that. Now, we've got to approach the elephant in the room. He is a nickel cornerback, but he may well be among the best options available, and he's certainly better than slot god Nickel Roby-Coleman. Now, if the Eagles still view Avonte Maddox as a potential CB2 or go on to draft one, then Paul would be the perfect candidate to hold that nickel fortress down. Somehow, the Eagles overlooked him in both of the last off-seasons, and despite a 2019 campaign that was absolutely stellar, the Jets got a steal of a contract, signing him to a new $5 million one-year deal. In 2020, he proved he was worth every single penny of that contract until the injury bug sunk its teeth in to the 28-year-old season, and a shoulder setback led him to needing season-ending surgery. Paul is more of a man-cover corner and may not be the perfect schematic fit here, but he's certainly among the more premium options on this list. 9 starts in 2020 proved that the year before was anything but a one-hit wonder, registering 7 passes defense, 2 picks, and 43 tackles. If the Eagles want to make sure they've got a reliable nickel corner next year while they continue to groom their eventual heir to the CB2 throne, Brian Paul is that guy. Next up is a familiar face to many, Sidney Jones. And I don't want you to scream at me just yet, just hear me out. I understand the experiment failed, and I also understand that the last thing the Eagles should be doing is bringing back players from last year's absolute disaster class. However, I think there is significant value here for a team already with their backs to the wall when it comes to cap space. As Eagles fans were promptly reminded shortly after his departure, turns out Sidney Jones is actually a pretty solid cornerback when healthy. It only took a couple of weeks for him to make an impact in Jacksonville, and the problem was, as it always has been, injuries. Jones ended 2020 on IR after battling an Achilles injury and ended that season with 9 passes defense, 26 tackles, and a forced fumble, along with that interception against Deshaun Watson. The Eagles know Jones well, and they're no longer in a scheme that would exploit his weaknesses. The cover 2 base that often sees safeties in zone coverage that it looks like Jonathan Gannon's going to implement would provide shelter for Jones, which is something he never really had in Philadelphia and something he showed in Jacksonville that he needed all along. With yet another injury to his name, it's likely that Jones could be on the way out of Jacksonville, and the contract that he would sign would have to be very, very cheap because there's such a high risk that comes with this. On his day, Sidney Jones is a solid CB2. That's what the Eagles need. If they bring him in, they draft someone, maybe it's Patrick Surtain, maybe it's Caleb Farley or whoever, but they bring in that guy. Sidney Jones is your bridge cornerback. He is your stopgap, low risk, high reward, cheap, cheerful, and familiar. It may not be the dream free agent signing, but it could be a pleasant surprise for Philadelphia fans. Penultimately, we've got Ahkello Witherspoon, and this is someone that I absolutely fell in love with during the pre-draft process because of his Colorado tape, but his NFL career to date has been a little bit disappointing. He's been benched, he's been injured, and has shown flashes of absolute shutdown potential that have been mired in everything mentioned beforehand. What's really interesting here, though, is that Michael Clay, the Eagles' new special teams coordinator, was on the Niners roster before moving to Philadelphia, so he does have previous experience with Ahkello. Witherspoon amassed 28 tackles, 9 passes defensed, and an interception through 10 games in 2019, but with only 4 starts in 2020, those numbers dropped significantly. However, he does play in a scheme similar to that which Jonathan Gannon should deploy in 2021. He's a dinner cornerback who brings plenty of size, ball production with 24 career passes defensed, and fits the Liam mold perfectly. This is my dream cornerback right here. He's long, he's gangly, he makes plays at the catch point. That's everything you want, and it is the perfect complement to Darius Slay. But the bottom line is this: the Eagles can't afford to get picky when it comes to free agent cornerbacks, and at just 25 years old, this 6'2", 195-pound corner has plenty of upside. I think this could stop the bleeding for CB2. It's not going to cost them a ton, given the fact that he clearly continues to fall out of favor in San Francisco, and there have been reports that Kyle Shanahan isn't overly high on him. So with the market dipping, this is a perfect time to take advantage of the value there. And talking of value, this last pick could be the most valuable of all the free agent class. If you want to talk bargain bin finds, you may not find better bang for your buck than Michael Davis. A former undrafted free agent out of BYU is coming off of an incredible 2020 season where he had 14 pass breakups, 64 tackles, and led the Chargers with 3 interceptions. It's mad to think that just 1 year after catching on with the Bolts in 2017, he'd already unseated Trevor Williams halfway through the season and hadn't looked back. He only gave up 2 touchdowns last year in what became his most prolific campaign yet. At 6'2", 196, he's another long corner that will bring that Xavier Rhodes type skill set to the table for what should be a similar sort of price. The allure here, though, is that he's still only 26 years old. He would be a great fit opposite Darius Slay, having already co-piloted a secondary with Casey Hayward for 2.5 years. And due to the depth of this year's group and how many free agents are going to be commanding a big bag or looking for that short-term deal to secure a guaranteed salary in a COVID-plagued season, he could come at a slight discount and offer the Eagles some real upside here. But I want to know who you want the Eagles to sign. Which free agent corners do you have your eyes set on? Let me know in the comment section down below. From myself, Liam Jenkins, I'll talk to you soon.